Hey there, friends and enemies, JoPa here again, and today we got the first update overview trailer for the First Descendant that I want to check out with you guys. Give us a little bit of a vibe check for Luna as well as Ultimate Valby, which I'm very excited about. I think Ultimate Valby is going to be one of the best, if not the best characters in the game right now, with based on how regular Valby performs. It just depends on her mods for sure, but I'll also go over a lot of the changes we got today with the patch notes as well for this major update. So let's check out the trailer first, and then I'll go over everything else from there. I mean, this character's a vibe, to be sure. I'm not sold on her, to be honest, though. Like her viability. And I'll explain why towards the end of the video, but yeah, I like her abilities. I like the visual design, looks really cool. They look unique and could be very, very interesting. She does have a mod that we learned about that could really change the game with her, but ultimately I don't know how it's going to perform. Now Valby, this skin is crazy. Her skin in the shop is going to be nuts too. She's going to be absolutely broken for sure. I know Valby mains have been waiting, just chomping at the bit. This is her other skin that we get to get her ultimate version for sure. Now Gluttony, this boss fight, sick. A little minigun, a little plasma rifle it's got. It's crazy. Just watching Luna dance in the middle of battle is kind of wild, to be honest. Yeah, overall, good stuff. I'm looking forward to playing her. Now, the downside for me for Luna is that she's very much a support character, and I don't know if there are a lot of places to use her right now effectively. And what I mean by that is in the Colossi battles, it is often beneficial to just solo them. You don't really want to, you can play with randoms if you want. Maybe if you have a squad, a duo, anything like that, she's going to be very good for buffing up your other characters. But solo content, she might not be as valuable as some others. And until we get something like the new mega dungeon that's eventually coming out, I don't know if she's going to be a super useful character overall, or if she's going to be more niche. If you have the group, if you have the squad to use her, she's going to be good. Compare that with Ultimate Valby, who is going to be probably one of the more sought after characters in the entire game. We got some modification modules, Spiral Tidal Wave, the bouncy bubble bullet has been replaced by a projectile that flies in a straight line. Spiral Tidal Wave is stackable and can be fired 3 times in a row and attracts impurities during the Gluttony Intercept battle. So really focusing on that Void Intercept, which I think is interesting to give her an advantage there. I don't know how good that'll be outside of that. Hydro Pressure Bomb, instead of plop plop, she leaks forward and deals damage to enemies around the landing area. The more enemies in the laundry state, the more powerful the damage. Could be very good. Again, we'll have to wait and see how the scaling goes. They've replaced some of the regular, not replaced, but they've added in amorphous materials to have AA variants that you can get the Ultimate Valby, you can get the Luna, as well as some of the new weapon, for example, and some other options there as well. So definitely keep that in mind. There's going to be new things to farm for as we expected. Now Luna, passive skill improvisation. Using any skill increases inspiration gauge, which allows Luna to use enhanced skills. So you have to use that first, and it's going to be essentially a cycle of using her skills. Stage presence uses the skill, changes Luna's weapon to a unique weapon, performing the notes in time of the music by using her skills or hitting monsters, stacks, and increases her skill power modifier. So you're going to want to focus on building up her skill power modifier as much as possible. Passionate Stage uses skill, makes Luna play upbeat music, increases skill power modifier of Luna and her allies. Gaining the enhanced effect increases skill power modifier even more, and also increases the skill critical hit rate and damage of allies. Now, again, since she's a support character, it's interesting, but I will be very curious to see how we're able to buff her unique weapon in order to potentially make a full build around it for solo play, or just play in group content where you can use her and still contribute towards DPS. Relaxing Act using skill makes Luna play relaxing music, essentially recovers MP of her and her allies, and then gaining an enhanced effect increases MP recovery and reduces skill cost. So essentially, there's an idea where you can use Luna's abilities to buff a character who wants to spam their abilities and do a bunch of damage. And not only can you do increased skill crit rate, but you can also get that MP recovery and reduce skill cost. It doesn't reduce the cooldown, though, of those other abilities, so you're going to have to really lean into that as much as possible. Delightful Stage uses a skill, makes Luna play delightful music, hit an enemy with a note, increases inspiration gauge, and decreases the skill cooldown of allies. Gaining the enhanced effect increases the inspiration gauge even more and immediately resets the cooldown of allies. There it is. So potentially this could be very, very good. But again, remember that when you're doing the Colossi Void Intercept battles, the HP, all the damage you have to do to the Colossi goes up the more players you have in your team. So you might be better off just getting a different DPS character and absolutely melting some of these Colossi. That might not be possible going forward. We don't know how the new one is going to be meltable. I'm sure it's not going to be that much different from what we see in the game, but there may be reasons to run her in the future, especially if you have, for example, her with 3 characters who really shine using their abilities, and Luna can just essentially buff all of them at one time. That could be very, very interesting. Her modules, Nimble Footsteps. This one enhances her movement speed and it amplifies the effect range of her performance, making it easier to support allies. This will be a must-have if you're doing a support build. And then Noise Surge transforms all Luna skills to combat skills, performing the notes in rhythm, unleashes powerful AoE. When the inspiration gauge is full, summons a moving stage where she dances to recover MP and shield. This is one that'll be better off if you're playing with her solo, but ultimately I think Nimble Footsteps will be more valuable in the long run. Talks about amorphous materials again, new hard difficulty, Void Intercept Battle Gluttony. He looks really cool, like I mentioned earlier. He's got external component sets, Toxin Resistant 4-piece grants the effect that recovers MP on hitting target with the skill's unique weapon. So that's really, really interesting that it focuses on the unique weapon that only certain characters can benefit from, like a Freyna, for example, potentially, or a Luna. So I think this was one that would be a good idea to farm potentially, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, new Ultimate Peacemaker. This is the new weapon. It is a handgun, it looks like, and it's got the Ultimate Weapon Peacemaker. Using a Dimension skill grants the single reload for peace, and single reload for peace enables you to fire the loaded ammo in a single quick burst when taking an aim shot. So it could be okay. I'm not sure. I don't really like handguns in the game right now, but Concretion. This is the new module. Decreases movement speed, fire attack, and all attribute attack except non-attribute attack every time a skill is used, but each stack of Arc Concentration increases defensive MP. So if you're going a full support defense build with your Luna, this could be good. Otherwise, I don't know how good it's actually going to be. Now, they added a bunch of new skins to check out. Definitely check out the store for those. Some UI and UX fixes here. A lot of good stuff that I think is interesting, but I'll let you check that out. I'll leave a link in the description down below to this article so you can see for yourself how it is going. They also increase the poison contagion range of Freyna. They increase the maximum scaling range of Valby skills, increase the maximum scaling range of Blair skills, change the blizzard generated by Viesa, and then some other head skins that are changed, nonsense like that. That is a good quality of life stuff, but not going to affect, ultimately, the gameplay in the long run. This is where we get really interesting. Enduring Legacy is probably going to be the best weapon in the game. Critical hit damage increased after it was already really, really good is actually insane. Increased Secret Garden's crit hit rate. Increased Nazetra's Devotion's critical hit rate and critical hit damage. Decrease the trigger rate of bombardment of Greg's Reversed Fate, but now also triggers when the weapon is fired at unshielded enemies. So this is one that I think has been pretty average overall, but could be really good going forward, potentially, but we'll have to see. Increased amount of void shards that can be acquired from special operations by about 7 times. Massive for farming. Absolutely love that. They changed 100% chance to spawn encrypted vaults at the Desert, Vespers, Echo, Swamp, White Knight Gulch, Hagos, and Fortress, which is good. Other changes, optimization improvements, bug fixes here. Some of these fixes I think will be frustrating or good for people, but I'll let you check all of those out for yourself. Now, there are some Descendant specific bug fixes as well, which I think could be good or bad. It depends on. We'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. Some of these bug fixes might be inadvertent nerfs, to be honest, or they might be inadvertent buffs. We'll have to see how they go in the grand scheme of things, but for now, that's a wait and see until we get hands-on. Now, fix an issue with the Ultimate Thunder Cage unique effect would deal more than 1.33 damage when monsters were clustered. Instead, it now deals 2 times damage regardless of the number of enemies. So, this is one that feels like a nerf, but also because it's a buff to the damage, it might play out so it kind of evens out. You might not do the insane damage you were doing before, but it'll see. So it had more power than originally intended. If something like this happens again in the future, we won't stop simply fixing the bug, but consider how to preserve the value of your items. So it's good that they're trying to balance that. Again, some things are going to be broken inadvertently, and you can't just let them run wild. Here's a bunch of mod fixes as well to check out. We'll be interested to see how those all work. Some field fixes as well, which I think, again, the more they fix these things in the game, the better off that we are, because I do think some of these things are problems we might not even realize how much of a problem they are until we have a smoother gameplay experience going forward. So yeah, more fixes here. Fix an issue with a Elite Volga special effect chasing the orb would not deal damage. So this is going to be very, very interesting. Season 1 and Season 2 updates will also respond to improvements. Today, talking about the plan to improve the current state of First Descendant rather than about the Season 1 and 2 updates. Drop rate improvement plans with all our drop rate systems are operating fairly in the First Descendant. We do understand some players are struggling. To address this, we're planning to introduce a new system where you can easily get the item you want after repeating the activity. So essentially, it'll be a cap. So if you run something 10 times, maybe you're guaranteed to get it on the 10th run. So I think that could be interesting. Various missions and amorphous materials with chance-dependent rewards. So if you have something that's a 5% drop rate, for example, if you run it 20 times, so that would equal the 5% chance of it, maybe you get it at that 20th run guaranteed. I think this is a good idea ultimately, especially if someone just gets frustrated and just stops farming overall. Disposing of leftover items, some information about that. Supporting build diversity, this is huge. A lot of fun to see a variety of builds. So we love to see different builds, blah, blah, blah. We hope for more builds to exist in the First Descendant, and we want an environment where players are free to experiment. However, we found that it's difficult to take advantage of loadouts after assigning socket types. As a result, dev team is planning to provide an environment where completely different builds can be created by assigning each loadout with different socket types. We hope this will help you experiment with different builds without feeling overwhelmed. Again, I think that's absolutely massive. The socket types, I think, are good to a degree because it kind of pushes you towards being smart about how you're upgrading, but it also, the major downside is you can't experiment as much as you might want. Balancing. Seeing dominance of the skill damage focused builds of some Descendants and weapons that are well suited for these builds are quite popular now. We want the meta builds to change from season to season. Massive. Can't promise all Descendants and weapons will equally balance at all times, but our goal is to change the effective builds. To that end, we promise to make constant adjustments in different ways to play with new content. That's going to be the key. Right now, the damage-based Descendants are dominant, not necessarily just because of the fact that they are really good at DPS, but also the content that we tackle is primarily focused on doing as much DPS as possible. Whereas instead in the future, the hope is that we get additional content that requires you to focus on DPS, sustain DPS over a longer period of time, not just melts. Then we also have to do ad clear. You also have to do defense, buff your teammates, heal your teammates. If all of that is included, that's what I was talking about with Luna. If we get more content that allows you, especially endgame content, that pushes you in that direction, these dominant builds, while they'll be very good for Colossi, might not be the end-all be-all for the best builds in the game. And I think that's the key, is you don't want to just nerf these builds in the ground. You don't want to just buff everything else and it makes every piece of content just far too easy. But there's a balance and there's a way to find different types of content, hopefully, like a mega dungeon or like something of that nature, to where you need a variety of different content to be different builds in order to ultimately be successful. So that's what I hope for the future. We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, that's going to do it for me. If you want to see more of the First Descendant content from me, like, comment, subscribe. My name is Jopa. Have a good one. I'll catch you all later.